everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then you're watching the Tech Corner, a platform created by yours truly to help women secure the tech bag. On today's video, I will be talking about how to break into data science, and I'm actually joined by a special guest called Jack. Jack is a data strategist in Munich who started her career off as a data scientist. So I'm going to be asking her questions like what the application process was for her first data role, any advice that she has to give you guys who are looking to break into this amazing industry. So I'm sure you're going to find it useful, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to kick off by obviously asking you just to tell us a little bit about yourself. It'd be great to know kind of what you do now as a role as well.
Yeah, for sure. Hello everyone. I'm Jack. I'm currently working in the tech industry, more specifically within the data field, and I'm leading a small data team right now at Palantir. And basically I'm kind of like operating as still like as a data scientist, but also as kind of like a team lead and a little bit more in like data product management as well.
Wow, that sounds really cool and just like amazing that you've got kind of a wide range of things to do. And obviously you mentioned that you're specifically in data, which is just like a big industry that's very popular at the moment. But it'd be great to know a little bit more about your educational background. Kind of, did you go to university? If you did, what did you do? So that everyone kind of has an idea of that.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, I started to be in the data field 5 years ago. But when I graduated from school, if someone would have told me like you are going to end up in the US in the data field working in tech, I would have called them crazy. So just to set things in perspective, like it was never something I planned from like early on to be in the tech industry, to work as a data scientist. And honestly, I wouldn't even have known what a data scientist even does or what that even means. And so I definitely like my educational background is not all about data. So basically in school, I was always interested in like in a variety of different topics. Like I focused a lot of like maths and physics in school, but was also super interested in like business topics, politics, like lots of different things. So for me, it was like pretty difficult actually to figure out what do I want to do after school? Like, what do I want to study? What field do I want to go into? And so something that was really important for me was to study something where I have a lot of opportunities to transition or work at like the intersection of a couple of different fields.
Yeah.
And so that's why I picked as my bachelor's the major. I think industrial engineering is what's closest to it. In Germany, basically, you can study half business and half engineering. And so I studied half electrical engineering. And so I did that for 3 years. It's really like a variety of different things. So some legal topics, business topics, electrical engineering. And that was also the first time where I learned a little bit of coding. Like we just had one class on coding. But that was kind of like the first touch point, I think, I got, related to like tech or even data. And I also studied together with a company. I think that's like a pretty German model. Basically, you apply to a company first, and then they also kind of like figure out the university and everything. And throughout the 3 years, I basically like studied for a semester, then worked for 3 months, studied for a semester, worked for 3 months, and so on. And so I did that with a fairly kind of like traditional German company, kind of like medium-sized in the middle of Germany. And yeah, that's kind of like how I started, not really within the tech industry. But I think that experience also taught me a lot and got me interested in tech through some coding courses. Also, honestly, through figuring out that maybe that traditional German company was not the perfect fit for me. Yeah. And that's why then I applied for master's in data analytics afterwards.
Wow, that's amazing. So you mentioned kind of the different routes that you take. So obviously you did a degree, a bachelor's degree, and then you worked and kind of studied at the same time. So we have something similar here in the UK. It's called an apprenticeship. And people who you turn 18, so you have to go to school here until you are 18, and then once you get past that age you can go and work, but you can choose to work and study at the same time. So we do have that here in the UK, but you're right, I don't think it's very common kind of in the US, but it's definitely here in the UK. So that's amazing. I think having that background in both kind of business and engineering probably did really set you up to go into kind of the tech space. So that is amazing. And then a master's in data, that's really cool. How did you find the transition from kind of engineering to the data piece? Was it what you expected? Was it similar, like skill sets that you needed?
Yeah, I think it was very different from what I expected. And honestly, also, I didn't know anyone in tech. Like none of my friends worked in tech before. Tech is not like a super big industry in Germany. Also, my family, like I was the first of my family to study. So it was just not like something I was like familiar with, or I didn't know anyone. And I just like took a leap of faith and wanted to like try it out and see if it's something I'm interested in. And so, yeah, definitely it was kind of like a culture shock. First of all, like I moved to the US to do my master's. So I think partially it was also just changing like countries and the university system, but also like being so close to like coding and hear about tech was just something that was very different. But I really enjoyed it. So I studied at like UC Berkeley, which is like close to San Francisco in the US. So it was really like almost within Silicon Valley. So there were like all the big tech companies around, a lot of startups. And so it was like a very different environment compared to kind of like where I came from, like middle of Germany, a lot of kind of like small companies, mostly manufacturing companies. That was really like a big transition. But I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it was a good opportunity to learn a lot of new things.
That is amazing. It sounds like such an amazing experience, both kind of moving into data and then also moving to the States to study. Like, wow, when I was younger, I always wanted to move, and that I never did in the end. But if I get the opportunity, then I definitely will. So that sounds absolutely amazing. So once you kind of finish your data master's degree, what do you feel like was the application process for kind of getting into data? Did you find kind of having a degree was enough, or it gave you kind of the foundation that you needed? And then once you started applying, how rigorous, I guess, was the process? Was there a lot of interviews? Was it coding? Was it like, a psychometric test? I think it would be really nice for people to kind of get an understanding of that.
Yeah, I think the first thing I really realized is that data science, and also like generally the data field, like data engineering, data analytics, is such a new field that roles are not clearly defined. So you might apply for like a data scientist position at one company in one industry, and it might be a totally different role than for another company. And so I think the first thing I learned was to really read the role descriptions and figure out like what do they want, because I mean, within the data space, there are like a couple of different roles, even within the data science space. There are things that are a little bit more on the business side, so a little bit more maybe on the data analyst side. So basically trying to get insights from the data, help make decisions. And so for that part, and that was also what I was interested in, you need to have a little bit more like business background than maybe if you go into the other direction, which is kind of like almost on the computer science end, where you will build like machine learning models, and you have to have really good coding skills. Yeah. And so for me, kind of like I decided that I want to be more on the business side of things, just given my background, and given that my master's was only a year long, so I only had like 1 year of coding skills, and I didn't feel comfortable kind of like applying to that other side of the spectrum. So I think the first step was really to figure that out. But then afterwards, I sent a lot of applications. I think within the US, and probably also similar in other countries, it's pretty a competitive field because it's, I mean, you probably heard this term that data scientist is like the sexiest job of the 21st century. So I think like just a lot of people want to get into this field, and so it's really competitive. Yeah. And so honestly, like I really struggled to find my first job. Also because it was like a different country. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't have like any friends or relatives that could kind of like help me get into companies. So what really helped me was just networking.
Amazing.
And in all variety of things, like going to events, going to startup events, going to different lectures, like all these things, and just talk to like a lot of people and try to maybe build relationships and get a referral or get an interview through that, which is very uncomfortable to me, honestly. Yes. Because also, like, coming from Germany, that is really not the way things work here necessarily. And also, like, yeah, small talk and things like that are just not super like in the culture of Germany. Wow. And so I kind of like had to practice that and get into the flow. But yeah, once, maybe to talk a little bit more about the interview process, like once you get that first interview, or that the first one. So typically it starts with like an HR call, HR interview. It's really the typical questions. They are like, why are you interested in that role? Why this company? Like really the typical questions. And then after that, you typically talk to a data scientist. So this interview will be a little bit more targeted towards data science, your background in data, why you're interested in the field, maybe what kind of experience you had. And then after that data interview, it differs a little bit, first of all, on the company you're applying to, and then also what experience you have. But for a lot of new grads, you will get a data challenge. That's very typical. So basically you will get a certain problem, like some data sets with a couple of questions, and basically like have to solve this challenge and send it back to the company. It differs a bit from company to company, but for me, it was basically, they gave me like 3 data sets, a really broad problem statement. I think it was around customer churn. Basically, the question was just, what do you think about this in regards to customer churn? You have a kind of like a presentation in a couple of days to the business. What do you show them? And so they really just wanted to figure out, like, first of all, can I think in a structured way and figure out like what is important to the business? And then also in the second hand, how can I work with data? Do I know how to use this? And then after this data challenge, typically you'll get an on-site with a couple of different interviews related to data knowledge, business cases, personal experience. Yeah, and after all these steps, you will hopefully get the job.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So you've said so many important things there that I think are important to call out. So the first thing that you said about the job descriptions, absolutely. I think jobs in tech are like no other. So the job title, you just won't know what it is. Like there is strategist, there is evangelist, there is specialists. There's just so many different types of job titles. So when you kind of see the job title, you just be like, oh, I'm not sure. So having a good understanding of the job description is really important. Is that research element, which I think is so important when you're coming into tech. So thank you for pointing that out. And then another thing that you said, clearly, application process for tech is hard, right? It's long, it's rigorous. There are very many steps, and I feel like they challenge you in so many different ways. Like you've got an activity, then you've got a normal interview, then you might have a coding interview. Like I had like a team task, a presentation. Like you just have so many things. So I think being prepared and doing as much as you can to kind of put your best foot forward, I think is so important. So thank you so much for sharing that. It would be great to kind of get a better understanding of what does a data scientist kind of do day to day. I think people would find that really interesting, because even I would like to know, to be honest, because I don't know as much about the space as I probably should.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, generally, like data scientists within a company, like what they're responsible for is looking at the company's data and either trying to find insights, trends, patterns, so that the business can make better decisions. Like I think that's the one side. And the other one is using data to build better products. And I think that's actually also like a good differentiation on what kind of different data scientists there are. And I was more on this like first part where I was looking at the data and trying to make sense of it, to give recommendations to, for example, a product manager, a marketing manager on what to do next, or like how to proceed, what kind of decisions to make. And that's what I call like the more analytics focused data scientist. Okay. On the other hand, there are the more computer scientists, machine learning engineer, data scientists that basically help the product be better. So for example, I worked at Lyft before.
Wow.
And which is like a ride sharing company. So the data scientists that were more on this side would actually build machine learning or algorithms that would be in the product. So for example, when you match a driver to a passenger, there are a couple of things happening in the background. That would be like one thing where they would be involved in. Or if the passenger opens the app, there are already like suggestions on like locations where you want to go to. That's also like a machine learning algorithm behind that. So those are examples for actually developing like algorithms that would be in the end product. But so those are, first of all, like the two different types of data scientists. But yeah, I was more on the business side of things. And especially, yeah, I was within the product team. So basically figuring out how can we make the product better? How can we measure if we're successful? If we put out a new feature in the app, how can we measure if it's successful on apps, like A/B testing? So that was kind of like the things I was doing. Yeah.
You were doing. I think that's super cool because there's what people don't realize, I guess, there's so much that happens behind them kind of using their day-to-day applications, you know, like you said, opening up Lyft, opening up Uber. There's people who have worked on so much for them to be able to get to a point where you can actually open the app and get your recommendations and all of that good stuff. Another great question I think that a lot of people would be interested in is kind of what advice you have for people who are looking to go into data science. You know, they may be interested at the moment, but they haven't really made the steps of kind of really starting a career in that space.
Yeah, so I think like two pieces of advice that really helped me. And the first one, I think we already touched on a couple of times here, like figure out what kind of data scientist you want to be, because it really depends, like your skill set that you need will really vary. So for the more business focused data scientist, it's important that you had some business exposure before, that you have a good like business acumen. Of course, you still need like technical skills. You need to be able to know some SQL, some Python, and so on. But the skill set will be a little bit different than if you want to be like a hardcore machine learning like engineer. And of course, there are also data scientists in between that are doing both. But so yeah, the first thing that really helped me was to focus and figure out what do I want to be, and then focus on the skills there. And the second thing is that I think in school and university, you often learn the hard skills, like you know statistics, you will learn coding and these things, and they are obviously like very important. They're at the core of the job. But especially in the tech industry, and I think, yeah, you said that before, there's so many things that they want from you as well, like business knowledge. You have to be a good team player. Things are changing all the time, so you need to be like adaptable. And they're like, you need to be good at communicating, because in the end, if you're building something great, or if you have a good insight, but you can't communicate that to the decision makers, that's also that's useless, basically. And so what really helped me also was to not only focus on those hard skills, but try to get like all the soft skills as well. And for that, you can still get those at universities, maybe by joining some clubs or doing some internships or things like that. But yeah, that's one piece of advice I have, to not only focus on the coding skills, but also all the other skills around, because they're really important.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, you've said two very important things there. First of all, understanding that there's different types of data scientists, which I think a lot of people probably won't know. I think they have an idea of kind of what a data scientist is, and then they kind of stick to it. But I think that's very normal for tech. I think people think tech is like this box and it's just development, but it's like, no, there are so many people in kind of the tech that need to be a part of that cycle, and so many different types of people. Even one role, everybody does their role differently. So even if the job description is the same, when you actually come into the company, that's going to look completely different. So I think it's like understanding that. And then like what you said about the soft skills, I think absolutely, I'm always banging on about this on my Instagram. Because I think it's just so important. There's nothing worse than when people are kind of like hard technical, but the soft skills on there, because at the end of the day, the point of tech is to solve problems, and the only way you can solve problems is if you work in a team. There's a team of people, and they all play a part in that. So that communication is really important. That growth mindset and willingness to learn is really important. As you said, you have to be able to adapt really quickly to kind of things always constantly changing. So those are really, really important. So thank you. I wanted to ask you one more question, and I thought it would be nice to just ask, what do you think has kind of made you successful during kind of your time as a data scientist? I know for some people it's like they've had mentors, they've had sponsors, or they've really focused on kind of really skilling themselves up on like a specific technology. So it would just be great to kind of get your view on what's been, successful for you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think for me, first, when I started as a data scientist and being in tech, I was like super scared of all the great people that are there and that have like coded since they were like 15 and have those like great technical skills. I mean, I really started pretty late I hate to say that because I feel like you can start at any age, but when you compare yourself to the other data scientists in your team, like I started pretty late with data science and starting to code. I think it was like 23 when I started coding. And so I always felt a little bit insecure about that technical part. And I think what really helped me is to not think about it that way, because actually my background, being like half business, half engineering, having a lot of different interests and had a lot of different experience also with like working not only in tech, but in manufacturing and a mid-sized company before. I think that really helped me as a data scientist as well, and especially on that business side, because other people might be very better at building models or coding, but what I think really helped, like where I was good at, was communicating things to people that didn't work in tech, because I worked with them a lot before. I knew how to explain things, or also having that business acumen and business knowledge. So I think that really helped me as well. And then, I mean, that's kind of like my own strengths and my own things. But I think other than that, as you said, like having mentors and sponsors within the company was really important for me as well. I actually, I was lucky. I had a really great female manager at my first job, and I'm saying female because for me that was also like really important. Going into an industry where that's clearly male dominated, it was amazing to have like a female role model, a female manager that I could rely on, and that could also, I think, empathize a lot with how I was feeling, how I was thinking. So having someone there that helped me and empowered me was really cool. And then also I had a sponsor, not an official sponsor, but someone who I've met in my interviews who had like a higher position at the company at the time, that I felt like he really believed in me or saw something in me. And that was really helpful as well, just having him advocate for me in meetings where I was not in, and getting that senior buy-in. So I think either you're lucky and get those, but there are also ways to build your network in a company, like just meeting people, also advocating for yourself. And so I was lucky to just have them, but I think there are also ways to find these people within a company.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, it's so important, that networking piece. And it's so funny that you say kind of like in Germany with small talk and stuff like that, it's a bit different. So that's a different cultural thing. I think, I don't think it's just kind of Germany. I think the UK is very good at it and America is very good at it. But for me as well, coming from kind of an African background, I'm Congolese, I struggle with that a little bit sometimes, because I just want to get to the point, and I'm like, oh no, actually, I need to slow down, you need to kind of build the connection, speak to people. So I think that's really important. Having mentors and sponsors, and also understanding the difference between the two. A mentor can help you and guide you, but a sponsor is really going to help you kind of kick the door in, get into those spaces that are really useful. So thank you so much. So thank you. I hope everyone kind of enjoys this interview, and thank you so much, Jack, for kind of taking your time on a Saturday as well to interview everybody, but not to interview everybody, for me to interview you. And I hope you found this useful.
Yeah, thank you. No, it was really, really fun. I enjoyed it.
Jack is also actually on Instagram. She has her own data Instagram platform where she gives advice and tips on how to break into the space. So I will leave her details below for you guys to absolutely follow her. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys found it useful. As I said, Jack is on Instagram, so I put her details in the description below if you want to ask her any more questions. Please go and download my free tech starter guide, which is also in the description. And of course, please like, share, comment and subscribe, and I will see you on my next video. Bye.